Welcome. Tonight we drift into the misty midnight marshes of ancient China, where the moonlight pools, silver on rippling rice paddies, and frogs croak like tiny drums in the darkness. You step barefoot along a narrow, muddy path as fireflies flicker above swollen waterways. And each squelch of your foot sinks you deeper into the eerie quiet of the night. The farmers you pass wear rough hemp tunics, soaked with dew. You probably won't survive this if the river decides to rise while you re-out here, but we're only visiting in spirit. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe it only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're re-listening from and what time it is Saidi. Love to know who else is wandering these ancient marshes with us tonight. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You keep walking past hunched figures mumbling about how the rains have been different this year. A warm, sticky wind slides across your neck as you spy a boy chasing a stray chicken through the reeds. More worried about dinner than any flood. But his mother keeps glancing at the riverbanks as if the water itself might reach out and swallow them whole. Ancient Chinese farmers knew these rivers could shift from lifeline to executioner overnight, carving new channels or bursting their banks with no warning. Every few steps, you notice small stacks of polished river stones beside the path, each arranged by worried farmers marking how high the water rose last season. One rock taller than the others hints at a year when families fled their homes, crops washed away, and floating bodies became grim offerings to angry waters. Historians still argue whether the great floods of the late Shang dynasty were worsened by deforestation from expanding settlements or merely part of nature's brutal cycle. As you trudge on, the frogs go silent, replaced by a low drone from mosquitoes swirling in clouds thick enough to choke on. The scent of stagnant water fills your nose, earthy and pungent, hinting at secrets rotting just beneath. The surface, you notice the lanterns hanging from bamboo poles sway slightly. Even though the air seems still, some farmers claimed this eerie movement foretold a sudden swell of the river. A sign only fools ignored. The mainstream historical fact slides into view here. These farmers' lives were ruled by the Yellow River, the China's sorrow that earned its name for the countless floods it unleashed across the North China Plain, often wiping out entire villages and forcing emperors to launch grand engineering feats to tame its flow. But one quirky tidbit you might not hear in your average lecture. Some farmers believed certain dragonflies that hovered in spirals over the river could predict rainstorms, treating the bugs like living weather radars. Suddenly, an elderly farmer with a beard, like a knotted rope, beckons you closer. He's muttering a rhyme about how when the moon wears a halo, the river will swallow the ox. His voice shakes with more than a jit. The tremor of someone who lost kin to floodwaters more than once. He spits into the dirt for luck, taps his walking stick 3 times on a gnarled tree, and shuffles on without looking back, convinced that acknowledging the river's appetite directly could make it hungrier. As you follow his hunched silhouette, you slip on a patch of slick mud, nearly face-planting into the thick grasses sprouting from the dike's edge. A pair of green eyes glint just above the waterline. Oh, it's not a demon, just a water snake slithering by. But the farmers whisper about spirits that lurk in the river's depths, restless ghosts of drowned men who tug at ankles to drag the living into their cold. You shiver, feeling both silly and strangely convinced they might be right. You come to a place where the narrow dike opens to a flooded plain, shimmering like a dark mirror under the stars. Crickets chirp louder here, almost drowning out the muffled curses of farmers hauling baskets of stones to patch crumbling levees. Each stone is a silent prayer, each drop of sweat a plea, that tonight, one be the night. The river claims another harvest ore, another family. Pausing for a moment, you catch your breath. The moon emerges fully from a drift of clouds, bathing the water in ghostly light that flickers over floating lotus leaves. It's beautiful enough to make you forget, for a heartbeat, that the same scene could become a nightmare by dawn if the skies decide to break open. Remember that boy chasing his chicken? He's sitting now with his mother on an overturned bucket, tracing circles in the dirt, as she sings a lullaby about the dragon king of the river, a creature with a mane of lightning and claws of swirling rain clouds. Her voice is soft, but her eyes keep darting to the black water. The song, she says, keeps the dragon king sleeping, and tonight they desperately need him to stay asleep. In the distance, you spot a group of men lighting small floating lanterns and setting them adrift downstream. The flickering lights look like fallen stars, drifting through the dark, and every farmer's eyes are fixed on them. If the lanterns vanish quickly, the current is faster than it should be, a silent alarm to prepare for floods. If they linger, moving sluggishly, the villagers breathe easier for now. You slip back onto the path, heart beating in quiet rhythm with the frog calls. A sudden gust carries the smell of wet earth and the faintest metallic temps of river silt, making you swallow hard as you imagine what it would feel like to wake in the middle of the night with water pouring through your door. And so you walk on, feet growing heavier with each step. As the moon climbs higher and the farmers keep their anxious vigil by the water's edge, waiting to see if this night will stay still, or if the river will rise to rewrite their lives yet again. You wander deeper into the maze of paddies and canals, until the faint glow of firelight flickers between clumps of towering bamboo. The path ends at a cluster of small huts, perched roofs sloping like bowed heads beneath the weight of the night. Here, elders sit cross-legged on creaking wooden floors, their faces lit in gold by oil lamps that sputter with every gust slipping through the woven walls. They lean close to one another, voices hushed, tracing delicate lines on long, curling strips of bamboo charts filled with symbols older than memory itself. You crouch at the edge of the gathering, breath quiet as you peek over the shoulder of a thin man with a wiry beard. His hand moves with a dancer's precision, adding tiny marks next to swirling rivers sketched with soot ink. These whispered charts, you learn, are passed only within families sworn to secrecy. A single stolen chart could mean a neighbor's ruin if someone else diverted water or spread false omens. In these hushed circles, knowledge is currency, and your ears ring with the soft scratch of ink on bamboo as secrets are laid bare in symbols only a few can read. A sudden crackle of laughter breaks the tension. An old woman jabs a finger at a younger farmer's chart, teasing him for mistaking a river bend for a mountain ridge. She cackles so hard you half expect her to fall backward into the candle flames. The younger farmer blushes furiously, but the others nod, reminding him this knowledge. Each chart is alive, shifting with every season, every storm, every rumor. Mainstream historical fact glides into your thoughts. Early Chinese societies really did keep family-held flood maps, combining oral tradition with sketches on bamboo and silk to record patterns of rising and receding waters. Many villages protected these maps like treasures because accurate. Flood knowledge often meant the difference between survival and starvation. Yet here, as a quirky twist, you'd never guess from the sanitized textbooks. Dragons, or even gossiping farmers' little doodles, meant to shame ancestors who ignored warnings, or to honor those who read the river's moods correctly. Scholars still argue whether these playful details were purely superstition or actually part of a coded language, as the lamp flames gutter. An elder speaks of whispers on the wind stories of a year when the river rose so high it drowned temples and left shrines poking from the flood like lonely tombstones. His voice drops lower as he unrolls a section of chart showing jagged lines. You feel a cold shiver along your spine, even as sweat beads on your brow in the sticky night air. The elders around you lean in, as though the river might hear and take offense. She's like the dancing sea spray. She explains these marks show where sandbars formed in the last big flood. Places that shifted the river's power like a dragon flicking its tail. Her tiny hand trembles as she recounts how her cousin once ignored a chart's warning, planting millet too low on the floodplain. The river claimed it all in one night crop's home, even the family dog. Swept away by a surge so sudden no one heard the barking stop. The hush deepens. You notice the charts themselves smell faintly of smoke and resin, like something rescued from a fire. When the elders finish a discussion, they roll the bamboo strips with reverence, binding them in dark cloth and tucking them into hidden niches in the hut's rafters. These are no simple farming records. They are woven threads of memory, lessons paid for in lost harvests and loved ones. Another farmer begins a sing-song chant, tracing his finger along a chart's meandering line. He recites the names of every family that lived beside this stretch of river for 5 generations, interspersing stories of weddings interrupted by flash floods and festivals celebrated when waters receded. His voice is rhythmic, hypnotic, and you catch yourself swaying slightly, lulled by the cadences even as your mind races with the knowledge that entire bloodlines depended on these lines of ink. A sudden gust rattles the hut walls. The lamp flame jumps, and the charts shudder in the breeze, casting rippling shadows like dark waves across the farmers' faces. A hush falls as each person turns toward the door. The old woman who teased earlier mutters a prayer to the river spirits, tapping her knuckles on the dirt floor 3 times. Her eyes find yours, and for a moment it feels like she sees right through you, measuring your worth as a potential flaw. Your knees creak as you stand, careful not to step on a curling chart, unfurled across the floor. Outside, the night air tastes of damp bamboo and stagnant water. A pale mist drifts along the canal, catching the faint light leaking from the hut windows. Somewhere downstream, a bullfrog croaks a single, echoing note that seems to hang in the silence like a question no one wants to answer. The elders emerge behind you, folding their arms as they scan the moonlit water, eyes flicking between the horizon and the reflected stars. You realize these whispered charts aren't just records, they are a conversation with a river that never truly sleeps. A bargaining tool with a god that takes without warning. The elders murmur to one another about strange currents they felt today. How the river's smell has shifted to something more metallic than before. You glance back one last time at the bamboo charts, tucked into dark corners of the hut. As the night deepens and frogs resume their chorus, you step away from the glowing huts, each footfall pulling you further into the waiting dark, where the river listens and the charts whisper their warnings to the few who know how to hear. You slip away from the bamboo huts, the distant glow of their oil lamps dwindling behind you as you follow a narrow trail toward a ring of stones. At the center, a squat brazier glows red. Its coals. You feel the sudden urge to shiver, though the night air hangs heavy and warm. A cluster of mystics in tattered robes kneels in a half circle, each cradling a turtle shell in both hands. You crouch behind a tree, breath held, watching them place the turtle shell's plastrons. The shells hiss faintly, then pop with tiny cracks like miniature lightning bolts. As the cracks spread, the mystic's eyes flash with something between terror and reverence. One mystic bends low, nose almost touching the smoking shell, reading the splits. His voice is soft, nearly drowned by the night chorus of frogs and insects, but each word drips with dread. The river, he says, is restless. Your pulse quickens. Turtle shell divination known as plastermancy was a cornerstone of Shang dynasty ritual. These farmers used it not just to predict the river's swim, but to seek advice on planting. Kings demanded oracles to read cracks and shape decisions for an entire kingdom. But there's a fringe tidbit you find in every museum. Certain mystics insisted that the size of the bubbles rising from turtle shells foretold whether floods would bring only waist-deep water or sweep away the scent of burning keratin. Twists your stomach. It's sharp, greasy, and somehow ancient. You shuffle closer, careful not to snap a twig. A younger mystic no more than a teenager. His cheeks still round with baby fat turns, a shell over in his hands, like he's weighing a soul. His mentor, a stooped man with eyebrows as bushy as river reeds, leans in to correct his interpretation. "See this crack?" he whispers hoarsely. "It hooks left like a fish's tail. That means the river will find a new channel. Someone's field will vanish." Historians still argue whether these cracks truly corresponded to river behavior, or whether patterns were molded to match events after the fact, reinforcing the mystic's prestige. But here, beneath the moon and rustling reeds, doubt feels like a dangerous luxury. Each farmer lurking at the edge of the circle strains forward, desperate to hear whether they should move their livestock or sleep with boots on. A sudden pop from a shell makes you flinch. The mystics hiss as one. The oldest among them straightens painfully, eyes narrow, and declares in a rasp that the river god has spoken. His words ripple through the crowd, sparking murmurs of both relief and terror, depending on where a farmer's home stands along the banks. One man slumps to his knees, hands clutching at the hem of the old mystic's robe, sobbing that his barley was just planted. A rooster crows early from somewhere upstream, confused by lantern light or perhaps startled by the cries. The mystics pay it no mind, eyes never leaving the web of splits creeping across the shells. Your mind drifts back to the charts you saw earlier. Lines inked on bamboo now echoed in these jagged cracks, as if the river's secrets write themselves twice, once in whispers on paper, once in fire on bone. Jokes surface, dark and desperate. A young farmer pokes a friend's ribs, muttering that if the turtle predicts good harvests, he'll finally propose to the neighbor's daughter. If not, well, better to stay single than flood the wedding feast. Another old man cackles that the turtle must have eaten too many river snails. Its shell so twisted the cracks look like a drunk's stumble home. The humor is brittle, like reeds snapping in wind. The brazier's flames dance higher as a log collapses, casting the mystics' faces in stark relief, eyes hollow, sweat beading, unlined skin. A mist swirls in from the water, curling around your feet. Cold, bringing the night's sharp scent of mud and something more metallic like wet coins or fresh blood. As a final shell cracks, the old mystic lifts it high so the moon's glow reveals every fissure. He chants a prayer, voice rising over the frogs and buzzing insects. The farmers repeat his words in ragged unison, a chorus of fear and hope rolling over the dark fields. When the last word fades, the silence is heavy, thick enough you feel it pressing on your ear. The mystics scatter ash from the brazier onto the ground, their gnarled hands tracing symbols into the dark earth, curious. Its gesture is careful, deliberate, as if even one mist swirl might offend the river spirit listening in the reeds. Finally, the turtle shells, blackened and cracked like ancient porcelain, are gathered into a sack and carried off, destined for burial at a hidden shrine where it is said the river, sea, anger can be soothed with gifts of charred bone. You step back into the shadows, feet whispering through wet grass. As you retreat, the frogs resume their song. The mist curls thicker, and the distant river sighs with a voice older than any chart or shell. You can almost hear it whispering to itself, a promise or a threat. The night deepens as you leave the mystics behind, their chants fading into the susurrus of reeds, swaying in a breeze, thick with river mist. You follow a raised dike along the water's edge, stepping over sleeping dogs curled in the mud, until you reach a cluster of huts perched on stilts like spindle-legged cranes. Lanterns swing gently from ropes, creaking in the wind, casting wobbly pools of yellow light across the inky canal. Here, you find the watchers' farmers tasked with guarding the night. They sit hunched on wooden platforms, legs dangling above black water. Their eyes flick between the river-esque dark surface and a row of bamboo poles planted along the banks like sentinels. You squint and realize each pole has a carved notch marking. Past flood levels, some notches so high they seem to mock the idea of safety. A watcher with a scar crossing his nose taps a pole with the butt of his spear, murmuring that tonight the river breathes faster than usual. Your steps bring you closer until you hear their low conversation about things you wish were just stories. A night when an entire village, beneath water so sudden it left cooking fires, still burning under the flood, or the day children found a neighbor's ox high in a tree after waters receded, mooing miserably. These tales, woven with casual horror, make you glance at the moonlit river as if expecting it to lunge. Mainstream fact reminds you that these watchers were real fixtures in ancient China's irrigation communities, organized by local councils to patrol levees and check for leaks long before sunrise. Without them, a single unnoticed breach could become a roaring disaster. But here's the quirky detail. Some watchers carried hollow gourds, the haunting sound believed to frighten away evil river spirits known for causing sudden currents or whirlpools. A watcher stands, joints popping, and walks out onto a swaying bamboo bridge. His silhouette blends with the mist until he suddenly stoops, scooping a handful of water into a shallow dish. You watch as he tilts the dish, reading the way moonlight shimmers across the surface. He grunts to his comrades that the swirl near the far bank is too aggressive for a calm night, a sign the sandbars might be shifting again. Historians still argue whether the watcher's dish readings had any measurable accuracy, or if the tradition was more a way to instill confidence in villagers desperate for any illusion of control. But standing here, feeling the night press down with damp weight, you suspect even illusions offer comfort. when the river's voice turns. The watcher's jokes bubble up like nervous laughter. One jokes that he taught his goose to honk whenever it saw floating logs move faster than the current. Except now the goose one stop honking, convinced every leaf is an omen. Another recounts a cousin who fell asleep on watch and woke to find the river gently lapping at his knees. Boat drifting past like a silent rebuke. Sudden splash breaks the mood. Clug. Everyone freezes, eyes scanning the silver water until the oldest watcher points to a fishtail flicking above the surface. Carp. But the adrenaline leaves hearts pounding. They exhale ragged laughs, but no one truly relaxes. Even the dogs beneath the huts lift their heads, eyes shining yellow in lantern light, ears swiveling at every splash and rustle. A young woman among the watchers hums a tune, her voice threading between the frog's chorus and the whispering reeds. She sings of a river spirit with hair of drifting weeds and eyes like polished stones. Her lullaby soothes the others, their shoulders unclenching slightly as her words drift across the water. Lightning flickers on the horizon, silent and distant, painting the clouds with brief, ghostly white. A watcher points with his spear, the tip tracing arcs of warning. Storms often mean the river could swell faster than charts or turtle shells can predict. The watchers murmur prayers under their breath, tapping knuckles against bamboo railings in a rhythm older than the characters scratched on their charts. You sit down beside them, legs swinging above dark water, feeling the wooden platform tremble with every step the watchers take. The river's scent grows richer here, thick with silt and old secrets, as if it's waiting for one mistake to seize everything in a rush of black water. The watchers glance at each other, eyes darting to the notched poles. They return to their vigil, faces hardening into masks of wary patience. As you match their gaze into the dark water, you sense how every night must feel like a duel. Human endurance versus the river's endless, restless hunger. A warm wind teases the mist, carrying scents of mud and wilted lotus, as you slip away from the watchers and follow the bank to a small hut crouched under leaning willows. Through its thin reed walls comes the soft rasp, and you peer through a crack to find a scholar hunched over scrolls that sprawl like sleeping serpents across his table. His hair is tied in a topknot, his robe frayed at the cuffs, but his eyes gleam sharp as a hawk's. Swirls it 3 times, and begins sketching lines that seem alive with coiling energy. These are flood charts unlike any you've seen. Rivers rendered not in straight, but with wild sweeping arcs that loop and spiral, each curve matching eddies observed on stormy nights. His charts capture the river as it truly moves, never a fixed line, but a restless serpent shifting with each storm and moon phase. Mainstring fact whispers in your ear by the late Shang and early Zhou dynasties. Flood charts evolved from crude stick diagrams into increasingly sophisticated maps showing tributaries, levees, and seasonal flows forming the backbone of early hydraulic engineering. But the fringe tidbit in front of you feels far older and more primal. This scholar marks each chart with symbols for animal omen-steeny cranes, 4 clear skies, angry tigers for storms, blending meteorology with mysticism in a dance of ink. He pauses to light an oil lamp, the flame stretching shadows across his walls. Then he lifts his gaze, as if he sees you in the darkness beyond the hut, and mutters how charts are useless. If the river doesn't feel like cooperating, his voice cracks like old leather. A river has moods, he whispers to himself, and sometimes it lies. Historians still argue whether these whispered charts were widely shared or guarded like family treasures. Some say powerful landowners kept them secret to control planting cycles and manipulate rival villages. Here, though, you watch the scholar make copies for neighboring farmers, his bony fingers flying, and squiggles over fresh bamboo slats, eyes flicking between charts and the stormlight flickering outside. Suddenly he drops his brush, ink spattering across a delicate spiral, and slams his palm on the table. A drip of sweat traces his temple as he stares at a tight swirl near the river. Mouth. The shape predicts the waters will break from the southern levee, a disaster that could drown fields and villages in days. He breathes a curse so soft, it could be the rustle of willow leaves, then dashes to a chest against the wall. His hand trembles as he breaks the seal. The hut fills with frantic scribbling. You hear him murmur to himself that the charts of his father and grandfather never showed a spiral so fierce. Not even before the legendary flood that locals claim swallowed 3 villages whole. His words tangle with jokes both grim and weary. One about a rival scholar who claimed rivers could be bribed with bronze coins. Another about a cousin who predicted a flood. So often he moved to the hills and still sleeps. Lightning flares again outside. Closer this time. Illuminating shelves crammed with bamboo strips. A gust of wind rattles the reed walls, bringing the slap of waves against the levee. The scholar's ink bottle wobbles, nearly tipping, as he ties his latest chart into a tight roll and jams it into a clay tube meant for couriers. Barefoot in the mud. You follow him into the courtyard, feeling every step sink into the wet earth. As thunder bellows overhead, the scholar's lantern flutters wildly, casting a frantic dance of light and shadow on villagers' faces as they emerge from their homes. A boy no older than 10 is the first to grab the chart tube, darting off into the stormlit darkness. His mother calls after him, voice breaking with both pride and terror. The scholar grips the doorframe, eyes following the boy's bobbing silhouette until it's swallowed by night. Historians still debate whether warnings carried by runners like this one made a significant difference in saving lives, or if timing always came too late. But tonight, standing under willows thrashing in the rising wind, you feel the scholar's desperation thrum through the mud, as urgent as the river's gathering roar. You glance back once more at the scholar's hut, lamplight flickering through cracks, and see the storm reflected in his ink-stained eyes, wild, unpredictable, and far stronger than any chart could ever hope to contain. Rain begins as a Hushdini pinpricks. That dimple, the river's surface before quickening. You press deeper into the grove of willows, their branches whipping in the storm's first gusts, and watch as lanterns in distant huts wink out one by one, snuffed by wind or caution. Thunder rolls low and long, the kind that vibrates in your ribs, and you hear doors slamming, oxen bellowing, and children's cries swallowed by the storm's rising howl. But one lantern stays lit, bobbing along the levee. A patrol leader moving quickly, his cloak snapping like a tattered sail. He carries a long pole tipped with brass, which he thrusts into the river every few steps, muttering to himself as he measures water depth against familiar You shadow him along the embankment, splashing through puddles. Each time he pulls the pole free, droplets glisten in the lamplight like strings of tiny pearls, only to vanish in the wind. Mainstream Facts offers a lifeline. Flood patrols were crucial innovations during the Zhou Dynasty's expanded irrigation networks, a time when early statecraft recognized that controlling floods was key. They institutionalized these roving inspections, stationing men along critical levees to monitor breaches in real time. But there's a fringe tidbit, whispered by old farmers. Certain patrol leaders claimed the river itself spoke. Through subtle shutters of their measuring poles, it vibrated like a cat's purr. Floods were days away. If it bucked violently, they had only hours. Your eyes widen as you watch the patrol leader's knuckles whiten when his pole trembles against the current, his face turning pale as the river moans louder under the rain. He darts from point to point, planting small flags red for danger, black for imminent collapse, each fluttering furiously in the gale. Behind him, runners wait, ready to bolt toward distant villages. He wipes rain from his eyes, squinting at the swirling surface. The water's angry tonight, he growls, his voice nearly lost in the wind. It's changing faster than the charts say. Historians still argue whether these last-minute readings truly saved many lives, or simply spread panic that led to chaos and trampling. But here, on the shivering levee, there's no time for debates, only the breathless urgency of survival. Lightning cracks overhead, close enough that you smell ozone, sharp and metallic. The river leaps up, slapping the levee with muddy waves that glisten like molten bronze in the stormlight. The patrol leader curses, driving the pole deep into the earth at the levee's edge. One runner, no older than 15, slips and nearly falls. The leader catches his arm with a grip like iron, pushing him forward with a sharp slap on the back. The boy disappears into sheets of rain, feet splashing through rising puddles as his voice fades into the roar. Jokes come sharp and raw on the stormest edge. One patrolman bellows that he'll marry his donkey if they see sunrise. Another swears the river smells like boiled cabbage when it's about to stench he claims saved his grandparents once. Laughter bursts ragged and hysterical, more to keep fear at bay than anything else. Lightning reveals a split in the levee, a hairline crack running jagged as a spider's web. The patrol leader presses his ear to the ground, listening as water hisses through soil, eyes widening with each muffled gurgle. He scrambles up, waves a red flag frantically, and calls for nearby farmers to bring baskets of stones. They appear like ghosts in the rain, hauling rocks in woven backpacks, boots slipping. You move among them, mud sucking at your feet, hands stinging as you help pass baskets along the human chain. Each stone thuds into the growing crack, water frothing angrily around your ankles. The river seems to roar in fury, cresting higher with every heartbeat, spraying cold mist that clings to your hair and lashes. Historians still debate whether stone packing at breaches was truly effective or just a desperate gesture. Many believe it bought precious minutes, not hours. But those minutes meant a chance for children and elders to scramble to higher ground, a sliver of hope. In the river The patrol leader's voice grows hoarse, shouting hoarse encouragement, until finally he slams his pole once more into the ground. The vibration softens, a low hum instead of a wild buck, and he sags with exhausted relief. For now, the levee holds, though the river rages just beyond. Battering the stones, you and the others stacked with trembling hands. The storm's fury swells, thunder chasing lightning in quick. Ragged bursts that light up the soaked countryside like a battlefield. Sheets of rain slash sideways, driven by gusts that bend even the tallest bamboo. And the river thrashes like a caged dragon below the levee. You duck low, stumbling from one puddle to the next, others hauling sandbags to fortify the weakened banks. Through the shrieking wind, a bell tolls from a temple perched on a low rise, a desperate signal meant to carry far into the darkness. It's dull. Trembling peals seem to echo the pulse pounding in your ears. You follow the sound uphill, boots slipping in churned mud, until the temple's red eaves loom out of the downpour, glistening like blood. Inside, robed monks move with eerie calm, organizing scrolls and sacred artifacts for evacuation. Candles gutter in every niche, shadows leaping across carvings of dragons and turtles coiled around columns. You notice an altar to the river god, thick with offerings, bronze coins, rice cakes wrapped in lotus leaves, and an ornate turtle shell cracked down the center. The shell catches your Aja symbol of both divination and destruction in one fractured artifact. Mainstream fact steadies your thoughts. During the Warring States period, many riverside temples kept detailed water records inscribed on turtle shells. An early fusion of religious ritual and pragmatic observation that offered communities a kind of watery almanac. These records helped plan everything from planting seasons to emergency evacuations. But here, your quirky tidbit. Rumors swirled of monks claiming the pitch of each toll shifted with rising or receding floods. You watch a young monk strike the bell again, eyes closed. His face serene despite the storm. His head tilting as if listening for something deeper than thunder. Historians still argue whether these bell readings were superstition or a clever way to keep villagers alert during storms. But tonight, the bell's peal cuts clean through the wind's howl, giving desperate families a beacon as they scramble uphill, faces pale in each lightning flash. The monks work tirelessly, forming lines with villagers, 2 fairy sacred scrolls, water pools on the floor, slicking the ancient stones beneath your feet. You help lift a heavy bronze urn, arms straining, breath ragged as the bell booms above you like a giant's heartbeat. Between heaves, a monk shares dark jokes with a crooked smile, one about the river god's favorite game being catch and release, with entire villages. Another about a rival monastery of Priva that offered pickled radishes to placate floods only to wash away faster than everyone else. Suddenly, the bell's note wobbles, mid-toll, vibrating unevenly. The old abbot, tall and stooped, rushes to the bell, laying a wrinkled hand against its bronze side as if feeling a fever. His eyes meet yours with an intensity that pins you in place. The river rises faster than the watchers guessed, he murmurs, voice low and thick with dread. A messenger staggers into the temple, soaked to the bone, shouting that the levee near the southern paddy fields. His words send a shudder through everyone. Monks double their pace, bundling scrolls and wooden statues, while villagers grab elderly neighbors and toddlers, pushing them up the stairs toward the cave's mouth. The wind slams the temple doors open, rain driving inside in cold sheets. Flames hiss as candles die, plunging the main hall into shadows, pierced only by ghostly lightning. You catch glimpses of the abbot raising his arms in prayer, robes plastered to his thin frame. Historians still debate whether the abbot's final prayer that night was for the temple, the river, or the people fleeing through darkness. But as you glance back from the temple's stone steps, the bell's mournful note rings across the valley, sounding both warning and farewell. Lightning strikes a willow by the river, splitting it with a crack that rattles your bones. The sky glows sickly white for a moment, revealing the swollen river clawing at its banks like a beast unchained. You turn, following the flow of refugees toward higher ground. The temple's bell fading behind you as the storm swallows the night hole. You trudge uphill through thick mud that clings stubbornly to your boots. Every step a slow surrender to the earth's greedy pull. Around you, families cluster tightly, faces streaked with rain and worry, clutching bundles of rice and battered pots. The smell of wet straw and crushed lotus fills the air heavy. Damp perfume that mingles with the distant roar of the swollen river. As you reach a ridge, the floodwaters lay bare a terrifying scene. Entire fields swallowed by brown water. Trees uprooted and drifting like stranded ships, and beyond. The dark outline of your village's levees buckling under the pressure. A few boats bob precariously, crewed by frantic men. You can see the firelight of the temple far below, flickering weakly, barely a candle in the storm. Mainstream history reminds you that during the Eastern Zhou period, the Chinese developed a sophisticated system of early flood warning and community evacuation, laying the groundwork for what would become large-scale hydraulic projects centuries later. But watching the chaos unfold, you sense how fragile those early efforts really were. A fringe story lingers in your mind, Thales, of farmers who claimed that when turtles appeared unusually restless in river pools, it meant the waters were about to rise violently. These ancient creatures, sacred and mysterious, were sometimes released back into the wild with prayers. Historians still debate the practical accuracy of these animal omens. Did farmers rely more on turtle mood swings, or on weather patterns and levee inspections? Tonight, the uneasy mix of superstition and survival feels as real as the cold rain soaking your clothes. You shuffle alongside an elder who points at a low hill crowned with twisted reeds. "That's the safe spot," she says, voice trembling but determined. "We wait there till the river calms." You settle among the crowd, muscles aching, heart pounding, in time with the storm's drum. Lightning cracks overhead, revealing a shattered willow half submerged in the flood, its roots exposed and gaping like a wound. The wind howls through the reeds, carrying the distant sobbing of children. Nearby, a young woman rocks her infant, whispering lullabies despite the chaos, a fragile island of calm amid the storm's fury. You remember the scholar's frantic charts, the patrol leader's trembling pole, the bell's mournful toll. Each thread woven into tonight's tapestry of fear and hope. A sudden splash jolts you, one of the boats capsized, tossed like a leaf on the angry river. Shouts rise as men scramble to rescue struggling villagers, hands grasping at the rushing water. Someone jokes bitterly that even the turtles would drown in a mess like this. You lean back against a soaked stone, closing your eyes for a moment. The rain beats a steady rhythm on your cloak, mingling with distant thunder and the river's relentless roar. This is not a night for sleep, and yet, strangely, the storm's wild music soothes you, a lullaby, sung by ancient water and whispered charts alike. Historians still argue whether those who escaped the floods attributed their survival to human ingenuity For you, standing here in the cold mud, it feels like a little of both. Dawn breaks gray and hesitant, as if the sky itself is uncertain about surviving the night's ordeal. You rise stiffly, muscles protesting the long hours spent on cold earth, and gaze down toward the flooded plains, where the river now churns. Sluggishly, muddy water laps over broken levees, swallowing patches of crops and flattened homes in an indifferent tide. The village below is a study in ruin and resilience. Men and women wade through knee-deep muck, salvaging what they can: bundles of straw, shattered pottery. Children cling to their parents wide-eyed and shivering, some too frightened to speak. The air smells thick with wet earth and a faint, sour temps of decay. Mainstream fact nudges your memory. After devastating floods, ancient Chinese communities practiced ritual purification, burning incense and offering sacrifices to river gods in hopes of appeasing the waters and preventing future disasters. These ceremonies were often led by local shamans or elders revered for their knowledge of both nature and spirit. But here is a fringe detail. Some villagers believe the river's fury is a punishment for disrespect. Throwing trash into the water or neglecting ancestral rites could provoke its wrath. You overhear a woman whisper that turtles spotted near the village after the flood are signs of the river's, though others argue they carry curses within their shells. Historians still debate whether such rituals held real sway over flood patterns, or simply helped communities cope with trauma. Whatever the truth, watching villagers circle a smoldering altar by the riverbank, chanting softly in low, rhythmic voices, you sense a timeless bond between people and water. One respect and an unspoken understanding. You wander through the soggy streets, past collapsed fences and twisted carts, until you reach the scholar's hut. Its red walls lean crookedly, yet inside you find the scholar himself, bent over his charts once more. His eyes are tired but determined, tracing spirals and arrows that mark new floodlines. The ink-stained scrolls beside him now include observations from the recent storm, notes scrawled in a hurried hand. Glances up, giving you a weary smile. River speaks louder after nights like this, he says softly. We listen, learn. The turtle shell on his altar gleams faintly in the morning light. Its cracks now almost healed with lacquered resina, symbol of resilience and continuity. Nearby, a small boy holds a live turtle, its head bobbing slowly. You smile, thinking of how this ancient relationship between humans and turtles shaped early Chinese flood prediction, mixing science and spirit into something both practical and profound. It's a dance as old as the river itself, full of mystery and memory. As the sun breaks through heavy clouds, warming your chilled skin, you realize this is not just a story about floods. It's a story about listening to nature, to animals. 2. The whispered wisdom etched on bamboo and shieland about trusting that even in the darkest storms, knowledge and hope flow beneath the surface. The river's pulse slows, and the sun burns away the last remnants of storm clouds, leaving the earth steaming and heavy with the scent of wet grass and crushed mud. You follow the villagers as they begin the slow, solemn work of repair. Children splash through puddles, their laughter a fragile thread weaving hope back into the shattered landscape. Amid the rebuilding, you find the scholar once again, this time joined by a group of farmers seated around a spread of wooden tablets and ink brushes. They pore over charts marked with cryptic symbols and diagrams of turtle shells, pointing and debating with a mixture of reverence and pragmatism. You settle nearby, absorbing the rhythm of their discussional blend of tradition, mainstream historical insight tells you that these early hydrological records laid foundations for the monumental water management projects of the Qin and Han dynasties, documenting flood cycles, rainfall patterns, and animal behaviors enabled more effective planning, turning guesswork into an artful science. Yet here, as a quirky note, some farmers insist that specific whispered charts only come alive when spoken aloud, under moonlight, believing the breath of the reader awakens hidden meanings in the symbols. You watch as one elderly man gently traces characters with trembling fingers, whispering softly to the night air, while others watch in quiet. Historians still argue whether these ritual readings enhanced practical knowledge or simply reinforced communal bonds during times of uncertainty. But you can't help but feel the power in those whispered words, ancient voices reaching across centuries, bridging human and natural worlds. Suddenly, a young woman speaks up, recounting how the behavior of turtles in nearby ponds predicted recent floods with uncanny accuracy. She describes how the creatures became restless, swimming frantically before waters rose, acting as living barometers for the community. Her story draws nods and murmurs, blending oral tradition with emerging science. The scholar smiles at her account, then pulls out a new chart, overlaying symbols of turtles, rain clouds, and river currents. The river teaches us, but only if we listen closely, he says. His words hang in the cool evening air. As the group disperses, you linger near a quiet pond where several turtles sun themselves on mossy rocks. Their shells glint in fading light, intricate patterns etched like maps of unknown lands. You reach out, imagining the stories those shells might tell if they could whisper through time. A soft breeze stirs the water, and you lean back, eyes heavy with the day's weight, yet comforted by the enduring dance between people. It's a delicate balance, a fragile pact written in nature's subtle signs and human devotion. Historians still debate the precise methods and accuracy of these ancient flood predictions. But one thing remains clear. This blend of whispered charts, turtle omens, and careful observation shaped the survival of entire communities, weaving science and spirit into a timeless legacy. The evening draws in slowly, casting long shadows over the riverbanks, now littered with debris You wander through the village, where lanterns flicker weakly in windows, casting golden pools of light that fight back the gathering dark. The smell of wet earth mingles with faint smoke from cooking fires as families huddle together, whispering stories of the flood and the mysterious turtle signs that saved them. In one corner, an old storyteller sits, cross-legged, his voice low and rhythmic as he recounts legends of the river god. Turtle emissaries, creatures sent to warn of coming floods. Their restless movements a secret language understood only by the wise. Children listen wide-eyed, clutching small wooden turtles carved from river driftwood, tokens meant to bring protection. Mainstream history notes that these oral traditions were vital for passing down knowledge before widespread literacy, blending folklore with practical advice. They formed a social fabric that knit communities together in the face of natural disasters. But here's a quirky angle. Some accounts describe ghost turtles appearing on flooded fields pale. Translucent shapes that vanished at dawn, believed to be spirits guiding or warning villagers. You glance toward the water's edge, half expecting to see one, heart quickening in the twilight. Historians still argue about whether such tales were purely symbolic or rooted in genuine phenomena, perhaps bioluminescent creatures or optical illusions caused by fog and moonlight. Regardless, these stories shaped how people understood and respected the unpredictable river. You pause by a group of farmers studying water levels in a shallow trench, marking shifts with charcoal on bamboo slats. Their quiet focus contrasts sharply with the wild energy of the flood night. Nearby, a young woman unfolds a worn turtle shell, revealing a faded chart traced with meticulous care. She explains how each line corresponds to past floods, patterns etched by generations of observers who listen to the river's rhythms and the turtle's whispers. You reflect on how this ancient wisdom, combining observation, ritual, was humanity's first attempt at weather forecasting, precursor to modern science wrapped in the language of myth and memory. As the night deepens, you feel the weight of history settle softly around you. The river's song a distant lullaby. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but for now, the village rests in a fragile peace, cradled by the stories and signs passed down through time. The following morning dawns with a gentle mist hugging the river's edge, softening the harsh scars left by the flood. You walk alongside villagers who move slowly, their faces etched with fatigue, but also a quiet resolve. The air is cooler now, filled with the scent of damp wood and freshly turned earth, a promise of renewal. You arrive at a modest hut where the scholar has set up a new workspace. Ink pots, brushes, and stacks of bamboo slips create a makeshift office amid the room. He invites you in, motioning to a detailed map sprawled across the table, dotted with small carvings of turtles and symbols. Mainstream fact informs you that early Chinese hydrologists combined empirical observation with symbolic representation to create predictive models. An impressive feat for a society still mastering writing and measurement. These efforts eventually influenced large-scale projects like the Dujiangyan irrigation system, which transformed flood control and agriculture. But here's a quirky aside. The scholar shares a little-known practice, where farmers would place live turtles in water jars to observe their swimming patterns as natural barometers. If the turtles swam frantically or circled rapidly, it was taken as a sign of impending floods. Historians still debate how much weight to give such animal behavior compared to meteorological signs recorded on bamboo charts. Did the turtles' moods truly reflect atmospheric shifts, or was it an artful way to interpret natural patterns? You watch the scholar carefully inscribe new marks on his map, murmuring softly as if negotiating with the river itself. His dedication is palpable, a mix of science, superstition, and a deep connection to the land that feels almost sacred. Outside, children gather around a shallow pond, giggling as they watch turtles glide lazily through the water, their shells shining like ancient coins under the misty light. The scene feels timeless, a living link to the rhythms that shaped this community's survival. As you step back, the river's gentle murmur fills the silence, a reminder that despite its fury, the water is also a giver of life, a force both feared and revered. This delicate balance between respect and understanding, observation and belief, continues to weave through the culture and practices of these early Chinese farmers. It's a story not just of floods, but of the human spirit's capacity. The river stretches wide and calm beneath the pale sky as you follow a narrow path, winding through rice paddies glistening with morning dew. The village is slowly stirring to life, the soft chatter of farmers mingling with the gentle croaking of frogs. You pause by a small pond, watching turtles slip silently beneath the surface. In your mind, the scholar's whispered charts take shape, delicate lines and symbols, recording centuries of flood patterns and turtle behaviors. A language carved from observation and tradition. These charts were more than mere records. They were guides, offering the promise of foresight in a world ruled by unpredictable waters. These efforts laid the groundwork for large-scale hydraulic engineering that would shape the landscape for millennia. But a quirky tradition catches your attention. Some farmers believed that turtles carried the souls of drowned ancestors, and that their restlessness was a form of warning or communication from beyond. Historians still debate whether these beliefs were purely symbolic or served a practical function in encouraging community, cohesion, and attentiveness. 2. Environmental signs. Regardless, they shaped how people understood and respected the forces that governed their lives. You watch a group of elders teaching younger villagers how to read the turtle shell's patterns, explaining how the ridges and marks correspond to specific flood events. It's a form of storytelling etched in nature, passed down through generations. Nearby, children chase each other, carrying small carved turtles, their laughter echoing softly. The scene feels both ancient and timeless, a dance of continuity amid change. As the sun rises higher, warming the damp earth, you feel a deep sense of connection and the whispered charts that carried the wisdom of countless seasons. It's a story of survival and understanding, written not in ink alone, but in the very rhythms of life itself. The day grows long and warm, the sun casting dappled light through bamboo groves as you wander toward the village's gathering place. Here, farmers and scholars meet beneath a woven canopy, their faces weathered by sun and storm, their hands stained with ink and mud. The air hums with quiet conversations, discussions of turtle sightings, rainfall predictions, and the latest readings on the river's temperament. You join the circle, drawn into the rhythm of shared knowledge and experience. Mainstream history shows that these collaborative exchanges were vital for refining early flood prediction, merging scientific observation with oral tradition to form a communal intelligence. This collective effort helped shape agricultural planning, disaster preparedness, and even governance. But here is a quirky insight. Some villagers swear that repeating certain chants while reading the whispered charts enhances their predictive power, believing that human breath and intention breathe life into the symbols. You watch as an elder murmurs softly, the words carrying a hypnotic cadence that seems to stir the air itself. Historians still debate the extent to which these ritualized readings influenced actual outcomes versus their role in social cohesion and spiritual comfort. Either way, the practice reveals a fascinating interplay between belief and empirical knowledge. You lean back, feeling the warmth of the community and the enduring bond. It's a dance choreographed by centuries of experience, whispered charts, and the restless swim of ancient creatures. The river flows on, indifferent and eternal, while humanity listens and whispers back, crafting a delicate harmony that has shaped lives across millennia. The evening breeze cools the air as you find yourself once again by the riverbank. The village quiets, the day's labors giving way to soft murmurs and the occasional splash of turtles returning to their nocturnal rhythms. You breathe deeply, absorbing the calm after days of storm and struggler, fragile peace earned through vigilance and age-old wisdom. You reflect on the intricate dance you've witnessed, farmers observing turtle behaviors, scholars mapping flood patterns on bamboo charts, villagers, blending ritual. It's a story etched, not only in records, but in the very bones of the land and the slow. Mainstream history acknowledges these practices as foundational to early Chinese flood management blending science, spirituality, and community knowledge in a way that transcended simple survival. These early efforts paved the way for grand hydraulic projects and a deep respect for the natural world. A quirky fact to leave you with. Some modern researchers believe that turtles' sensitivity to changes in water pressure and chemistry gave early farmers subtle cues long before any written record. Natural early warning system that's only now being appreciated through the lens of biology. Historians still debate the balance between myth and method in these ancient practices. But what's undeniable is the human drive to understand and predict the unpredictable. To listen to whispers in shell and water alike. As night settles fully, the river's gentle murmur becomes a lullaby, carrying stories from the past. You close your eyes, feeling the timeless flow beneath the surface, the endless cycle of flood, fear and hope, knowledge and mystery. And somewhere beneath the quiet waves, the turtles swim on. Guardians of a secret language passed down through ages, waiting patiently for those willing to listen. As the night deepens, the world around you softens into a gentle hush. The river's steady murmur fades into a soothing rhythm, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Imagine the cool, damp air brushing lightly against your skin. The story of ancient Chinese farmers and their whispered charts is more than a tale of survival. It's a gentle reminder of humanity's enduring bond with nature. These farmers learned to listen to the restless turtles, the shifting winds, and the subtle signs hidden in the river's flow. They found comfort in understanding, hope in prediction, and peace in rituals that bridged the seen and unseen. Let your thoughts drift slowly, like leaves floating down a calm stream, carrying away the worries of the day. Picture those ancient waters, vast and mysterious, holding secrets beneath their shimmering surface. Watched over by patient turtles who have long known the language of the floods. No matter the storms life brings, you carry this quiet wisdom within youth to adapt and to find calm in the chaos. Let it settle gently in your mind, a soft light flickering steadily in the dark. Now, as your breathing slows and your eyelids grow heavy, allow the river song to carry you deeper into rest. Tomorrow is another day, but for tonight, there is only this peaceful moment, wrapped in the timeless dance of water and shell, whisper and shadow. Sleep well, and sweet dreams. The evening breeze cools the air as you find yourself once again by the riverbank. The village quiets. The day's labors giving way to soft murmurs and the occasional splash of turtles returning to their nocturnal rhythms. You breathe deeply, absorbing the calm after days of storm and struggler, fragile peace earned through vigilance and age-old wisdom. You reflect on the intricate dance you've witnessed, Farmers observing turtle behaviors. Scholars mapping flood patterns on bamboo charts. Villagers blending ritual. It's a story etched, not only in records, but in the very bones of the land and the slow. Mainstream history acknowledges these practices as foundational to early Chinese flood management blending science, spirituality, and community knowledge in a way that transcended simple survival. These early efforts paved the way for grand hydraulic projects and a deep respect for the natural world. A quirky fact to leave you with. Some modern researchers believe that turtle sensitivity to changes in water pressure and chemistry gave early farmers subtle cues long before any written record. Natural early warning system that's only now being appreciated through the lens of biology. Historians still debate the balance between myth and method in these ancient practices. But what's undeniable is the human drive to understand and predict the unpredictable. To listen to whispers in shell and water alike. As night settles fully, the river's gentle murmur becomes a lullaby, carrying stories from the past. You close your eyes, feeling the timeless flow beneath the surface, the endless cycle of flood, fear and hope, knowledge and mystery. And somewhere beneath the quiet waves, the turtles swim on. Guardians of a secret language passed down through ages, waiting patiently for those willing to listen. As the night deepens, the world around you softens into a gentle hush. The river's steady murmur fades into a soothing rhythm, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Imagine the cool, damp air brushing lightly against your skin. The story of ancient Chinese farmers and their whispered charts is more than a tale of survival. It's a gentle reminder of humanity's enduring bond with nature. These farmers learned to listen to the restless turtles, the shifting winds, and the subtle signs hidden in the river's flow. They found comfort in understanding, hope in prediction, and peace in rituals that bridged the seen and unseen. Let your thoughts drift slowly, like leaves floating down a calm stream, carrying away the worries of the day. Picture those ancient waters, vast and mysterious, holding secrets beneath their shimmering surface. Watched over by patient turtles who have long known the language of the floods. No matter the storms life brings, you carry this quiet wisdom within youth to adapt and to find calm in the chaos. Let it settle gently in your mind, a soft light flickering steadily in the dark. Now, as your breathing slows and your eyelids grow heavy, allow the river song to carry you deeper into rest. Tomorrow is another day, but for tonight, there is only this peaceful moment, wrapped in the timeless dance of water and shell, whisper and shadow. Sleep well, and sweet dreams. Sweet dreams.